I gave him an uppercut that sent him back onto his bunk where he slid down and was out of it on the floor. Oops. I checked the guy and found he still had a pulse. Grabbing a hand towel, I ran to the bathroom, soaked it in cold water, and placed it on the back of his neck. I gently massaged his shoulders until he began to stir. He looked up at me and muttered, "Who hit me?" "It couldn't have been you. You're a small guy, and I'm sure I could knock you across the room." "Help me up and I'll prove it." I ignored the hostility and went back to my chair on my side of the table. The one we'd be using to study. "I don't even know your name yet, and I'm sure you don't know mine. Let's start on a better note. I'm Bernard Beck, but everyone calls me Bernie. Looks like your name's Scott, but I didn't catch your last name. Why don't we reset things?" "Who do you think you're talking to?" he snapped. "The only reason I'm stuck sharing a room is because I'm a freshman. Next year I'll have a single, probably in one of the better dorms. I'm going to be this school's next starting quarterback, so I matter. You not so much. If I were you, I'd go live under a highway overpass until the semester ends." I looked at him evenly. "Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not going anywhere. We're roommates for the semester. Talk to the floor resident if you want out. Until then, I've got reading to do, so either quiet down or take a walk." The guy went crazy. He went out into the hallway and yelled, "Anyone want to see a sacrifice to the gods of the Hicks? I'm about to destroy a Bernie back. Come all and watch the bloodbath." This wasn't good. The guy was really going to try to fight me. I know nothing about fighting, but I do know how to defend myself. Scott stood at the door and hollered at me, "Come out here and let me show you how to take a punch. I'm going to hurt you so bad that you won't go to class for a month." I stood and watched him as he was holding something in a hand behind his back. I said, "How about going out into the hallway so that I can have a clear shot at smacking you in the nose? I know you have something in your hand behind your back, and I only have my hands. You're at least 3 inches taller than I am. And you're sort of a fat slob who weighs over 50 pounds more than me." That did it. He swung around with what looked like a fire extinguisher. I ducked the swing and drove my fist into his gut. The stunned expression on his face was oddly satisfying. I wrenched the extinguisher from his hands and hurled it down the hallway. Scott dropped to his knees, throwing up, but he was recovering fast. He got back to his feet and growled, "I think you've done that to me twice. This time you're dead." He charged with arms wide, but I ducked and pivoted, planting my foot on his backside and shoving him hard into the corner of the doorframe. That one definitely hurt. When he stood again, blood trickled from his forehead and nose. He screamed, "I'm going to kill you! You're dead!" Just then, the floor counselor and 2 campus police officers arrived, pushing through the crowd that had gathered to watch. Scott yelled at them, "Arrest him!" He wouldn't stand still while I tried to take him down. "Look at me. My nose is busted and I've thrown up all over myself. Put him in jail. You know who I am, so you'd better do it." One of the campus officers turned to me and asked what started this. I was in the room when Scott came in, spread his stuff all around the room, and told me to get my out of the way so he could put his anywhere he wanted to. I asked him to keep his personal stuff on his side of the room, and he went off on me. He became more violent until he was hollering for me to come out to the hallway so that he could teach me a lesson. He tried to hit me with the fire extinguisher that is probably still lying in the hall. I kept redirecting his rushes, and the last one sent him into the door jamb. The policeman looked at my hands and then began questioning the other dorm residents as to what they saw. They all said that I was trying to resolve the problem without physical violence. But Scott kept escalating the problem. The campus police had a problem. They had to separate us in some way and didn't know how. Scott was still hollering that he was going to kill me, and that the police needed to let him get the job done. He said that they could hold me while he beat me to death. None of that sounded good to me. The police finally asked me if I would consent to staying in an off-campus room for the night. I didn't see a problem with that, so I went to get my coat and the book I was reading and followed the police out of the building. The 2 men took me to the Columbia City Police Department and put me in their holding cell. The problem was they took all my identification, my belt, my shoelaces, my coat, and my book. I told them that I wasn't the problem, but the victim of Scott, whoever he was. I was told to shut up and be quiet. No one knew what I was being held for Monday morning, so they wouldn't let me out until they found out why I was in the holding cell. I was missing my first classes at the university and becoming very ill. I was somehow forgotten for breakfast and then lunch. A police officer came to unlock the door about 2 o'clock in the afternoon and said I was free to go. I asked for my shoelaces, belt, book, coat, and my wallet with my identification. The officer said, "Get the hell out of here, you've caused enough trouble." I asked to see his supervisor. He pulled his billy club out and said, "I've told you to get out of here. You'll not be able to leave if you don't get." The gods were watching over me when a guy with a bunch of metal on his collar asked, "What's going on here? Tell me why you were threatening this man." The officer couldn't get anything out. So the man asked me, "Why are you here?" I told the guy the whole story. He acted embarrassed and said, "Come with me and I'll see if I can find your personal effects." He reached over and tore the badge from the shirt of the guy who had come to let me out. He said, "Go see your sergeant to find out if you still have a job." The man took me to the front of the building and had officers running all over looking for my belt, shoelaces, book, coat, and wallet. Everything began showing up and my wallet finally came. I looked inside and said, there was a little over $150 in the wallet when they took it from me. That was money for my last lab books. I need that. The officer with the medal on his collars told the duty man at the front desk that he wanted every man on duty the night before to be in the conference room within 30 minutes. He looked at me and said, "So you're the guy who Scott, the infamous quarterback, is going to kill. I think you might need an escort to go back to your room. I'll take you there and also to the dean of the school so that you won't be charged with being absent. I'm thinking this is going to get worse, so stay with me." The man made some calls and we went to the conference room where all the officers were lined up. I was asked to pick out the men who brought me in and they were easy. I said their two names and pointed at them. I usually remember everything in detail and it was easy to pick them out. They were asked about the money from my wallet and one guy was acting guilty. I told the police officer in charge it's easy to identify my money because I always fold the corner of the bills to fit them in my wallet. The crease should still be visible. I had a $100 bill, 3 20s, a 5, and a 1. The two men were asked to show their wallets. One of them had $10,220, all with the creased corners. He became hostile and said, "This country boy from the sticks doesn't mean anything. He messed with the new quarterback. Send him back to the country." The officer replied, "You still owe this man another 20, a 5, and a 1. How about staying in jail until you pay him back? You other officers book him for theft and put him in the same cell Mr. Beck was in." Then he turned to me and said, "Come with me, Mr. Beck. Let's go see your room and maybe your roommate." That officer had another officer drive us to the campus and straight to the dorm. I could smell the cafeteria and wish that I could go eat. We went to the 3rd floor and to my room. The door was torn off the jamb, and you could see that one side of the room was totally torn apart. All my books were torn apart and my clothes were in shreds. My good Sunday suit was torn up with my good shoes cut open with a knife. The small radio that I enjoyed was now smashed into tiny pieces. The officer told the other officer with us, "Go get your camera and come back to photograph this room. I'm calling the campus police to find out what they've done. Someone had pissed on my bed." And there was human spread all over my new sheets and pillow. The place made me ill and I walked out. I was standing on the other side of the hall when Scott came in and began yelling at the officer. "It's about time someone came to see what kind of pig this Beck guy is. Look what he's done to my face. I have broken collarbone, a broken nose, and have lost a tooth. The a-hole sucker punched me. Just look at this pigsty." I walked to the doorway and said quietly, "Why would you tear up all my clothes and books? You destroyed over $400 worth of books. Why would you do that?" Scott spun around and snarled, "Now I'm going to kill you. The cops can watch while I cut you up for bait. Nobody does what you did to me." He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a large buck knife, flicking it open as he came at me. I still had a book in my hand and instinctively swatted the knife away. The officer nearby was so shocked he froze in place. Scott dove for the knife, but I stomped on his wrist, making him cry out in pain. That broke the officer's trance. He rushed in, pulled Scott's arms behind his back, and cuffed him. He looked at me and said, "Thank God you defended yourself." I was so surprised. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Quietly, I replied, "Maybe I don't belong in school. My dad wanted me to go to college. He left life insurance money so I could come here. I want to be a lawyer back in my county, but maybe I'm not cut out for it." The officer replied, "I'm the chief of police here in Kalaya, and I'll help however I can. This isn't the way anyone should start college. I think we can support you with a few things. And this punk lying on the floor might help too. His dad thinks he's worth something. Maybe enough to repay you for the damage." Scott started yelling again. "My dad will have your badge. You're just a small-town cop. You better start polishing your resume. I'll be out this afternoon, and I'm still coming for that backwoods piece of trash." "Keep talking, Scott," the chief said. "Eventually, the jury will believe every word." The dorm resident came in with a maintenance man. He saw Scott on the floor and me almost hiding in the corner. The resident said to the officer, "Bernie was only defending himself." The officer took him somewhere for the night to be safe. And then Scott went nuts and destroyed the room and all of Bernie's clothes and books. Everyone on the floor tried to stop and calm Scott, but he was out of his mind telling the world he was going to kill Bernie. I asked the resident, "Have any of my professors asked why I wasn't in class?" "A couple have called, but I told them there was a problem in the dorm and that you were trying to resolve it." I told the resident, "I need another room. I'll need to get some money to buy replacement books and some clothes. All I have is what I'm wearing now. I don't think there is anything worth salvaging in the room." The chief of police said, "Tell you what, let me call Scott's dad and see what he has to say. The kid's been in a couple of problems, but this is the worst. Let's see what he has to say. We can go to the Salvation Army store and get you some temporary clothes. They always have some decent stuff." The chief called Scott's dad from the residence room. I heard the chief describe what Scott had done, and he was going to jail on an attempted murder charge. Some of the lesser charges were going to be assault, extreme vandalism, and destruction of property. The next thing I heard was, "You can't buy your way out of this one. You might be able to salvage one hell of huge lawsuit if you were to replace the books your kid tore up and the clothes he cut up. He even slashed the shoes. The kid Scott attacked his country and doesn't know that he can have you for lunch. So cough up a couple of grand real quick so that the kid can get replacement books and clothes. You may ruin the whole deal if you do the lawyer thing and try to get him to sign off. The kid's country, but he isn't dumb." The next part was really funny. I'm telling you, Scott. Don't try to buy this kid with a new car or something off your lot. He's not the hick you prey on. Just give him a couple of grand so that he can buy some clothes and books. Your kid really screwed up this time. He may not be able to get back into school. Okay, get the cash to the station, and I'll be there with the kid so that I can take him around to get some clothes. The chief turned to me and winked. He said, "If I know this guy, he's going to go overboard to get you off his boy. He tried to kill you in front of me, so he's still going to go to jail for attempted murder. Keep track of everything that was destroyed because you should be repaid every penny it cost you to get back in class." The resident had another room next to his on the same floor for me. He told me, "This room is reserved for someone who isn't loud and who doesn't party all night. I won't keep you awake with moaning women, and I expect the same from you. Your room is a single, so you don't have to worry about a roomie. You also have your own bathroom and shower, but you have to keep it and span." The chief took me to the station where we waited for a half hour before the man we wanted to see came in. The senior Scott looked at me very hard and said, "You ain't that big." "How did you get away from Scott when he wanted to beat you down?" I simply said, "I'm a farm boy and don't know any better than to defend myself. Scott kept trying to hurt me and I kept trying to keep him away from me. He became angrier and I was taken away. You probably know the rest." The man looked me up and down and at the wad of cash he had in his hand. He said, "I should probably have you sign something, but was told to just give this to you in an effort to resolve this problem. I hope this doesn't surface again. I wanted to tell him to send his kid to another school because I was going to graduate from here." I had this nagging feeling that saying nothing was saying everything every time I wanted to say something. The man left the chief's office, and the chief held his hand out for the money I had been given. He counted it out in some small stacks until he had all separated. It looked like more than what my clothes, books, and the few personal things destroyed were worth. I had been given $3,800. That was probably fair, but it was a lot of money. The chief asked, well, now, can I drive you round or do you have transportation? I have a pickup that's in the student lot. It has a parking lot tag so that I can go and come as necessary. I'll go get some clothes, bedding, and my books if the bookstore is still open. The chief gave me a street map of the city and circled where the Salvation Army store was, where there was a Walmart and a store he thought had the best deals on good men's clothes. I asked him, I'd like a ride to get my truck if you have an officer going toward the university. That was easily done. The Salvation Army store was near the student parking lot, so I went there first. There was a few pair of jeans that were my size along with some shirts and sweaters. Definitely enough to get me started and I wouldn't look bad. I couldn't find any shoes, but that would have been too easy. I found a very nice-looking expensive suit that the coat fit perfect, but the pants were just a little long. I could let them be that way, but alterations shouldn't be that tough to get. I still needed a dress belt, but didn't see any. I found 2 white shirts that were perfect, but one needed a couple of buttons. I also found a couple of ties, so my dress clothes category was taken care of. I was about to leave when I realized that I would need another heavy winter coat. So I searched through what they had and couldn't find anything. I saw a rack full of appliances while I was in that area. There was a radio on a bottom shelf that was the exact same model of the radio that had been destroyed. They wanted $1 for it, and I was doing really well on saving money for the stuff I had found. I had spent $30 for clothes and took them to my truck. Next was Walmart, where I found the sheet sets, pillow, and a couple of Nicelle-looking blankets. I picked out towels, shaving stuff, deodorant, soap, clothes soap, some cleaning materials, a laundry basket, and loaded up on regular school supplies. I found a decent dress belt, and when I checked my wrist for the time and realized that my watch had gone away at the police station, I bought a $10 watch and gazed as I had bought my last watch for $7. I picked out several pairs of socks, a pair of tennis shoes, and still couldn't find any dress shoes. I'd have to go to a mall and to Sears or Penny's. All I selected totaled over $200, but I wasn't dipping too deep into the cash yet. I went to the main bookstore next to the university with my list of books and lab notebooks. The only book I had salvaged was the political science text. The cashier was smiling at me when I was checking out using a push card and asked, "You were just in here buying books 2 days ago. What happened to the ones you bought?" I didn't know how to answer, so I told her there was a scuffle in my room, and a lot of my stuff was destroyed. I've just about replaced it all. I have a new room now, so I won't have to worry about a roommate getting into a scuffle. The girl squinted at me and asked, "That wasn't the problem in Davis dorm, where Scott McKinley tried to beat up a new guy, was it?" I sort of smiled and nodded. She said, "I'll bet my dad has already been around to try to pay off what Scott has done this time. Scott's always screwing up. I'm Scott's older sister, and I apologize for a family member's bad manners." I asked this girl, "Your dad is pretty well off and your home must be here in Colia. I have 2 questions. Why would you and Scott live in a dorm, and why are you working?" The girl laughed and said, "The folks split and our mother is off and gone most of the time, so it's best for us to live in a dorm. Dad is running through a bunch of potential stepmothers for us. He gives Scott a lot of extra cash because he's the big football star. Dad says girls don't need a lot of spending money and thinks he shouldn't have to give me a lot more because he's paying for school. I don't mind working here. It does give me spending money and I get to meet people. I was thinking that I could use a job to keep my cash right." The cashier stuck her hand out and said, "I'm Julia McKinley and you're Bernard Beck according to your book order. What do people call you?" I grinned and said, "I'm Bernie to everyone who I spend time with." Julia said, "We have an opening for an afternoon and evening stock person. The pay is $1 over minimum wage and they'll work with you on hours. This would be close to the dorm and it would be a good way to meet people and have some extra cash. I'd like to apply." "Julia, where do I get an application?" The girl said, "Wait right here." She locked her register and ran toward the back. She returned with an older woman who was one of those who kept her glasses on the tip of her nose and looked at you over them. It gave me a smile, so I made a good first impression. We chatted for a minute and then moved away from the register area. The lady had a pad and wrote down all the usual information of name, date of birth, what year in school I was in. She was concerned because I was taking what she said was what seemed a lot of hours for a first semester freshman. I told her that it was my idea to take extra classes and get caught up so I could graduate with what would be my normal class. She asked, "Do you really think you can make up 3 semesters? That's a lot of work. And you want to work part-time too?" "I'm going to try. I'm a good worker since I grew up on a farm. I'll work hard for you, and you know that I won't be a problem going out and partying because I have too much studying to do." The woman smiled and said, "Okay, I'll get your schedule and we'll add hours for you to do some on-the-job training. We're open 9 to 9 daily and 1 till 9 on Sunday. You need to wear clean regular clothes and we'll give you a smock and name tag. Let's see how you like it. I noticed Julia is keeping an eye on you. She's a sweet girl and doesn't socialize much. You two could be friends." I pushed my cart toward the register and told Julia that I would probably see her when I come in to work. I thanked her for introducing me to her boss. I could still get supper at the cafeteria according to my new watch. So I hustled to take everything up to my new room and then quickly walked to the cafeteria. I loaded up a tray, grabbed a couple of cartons of milk, and sat to eat. One of the guys from the dorm floor came over with a cup of coffee and sat with me. He was from St. Louis and thought that it was neat that I came from the true Ozarks. I told him that it's some real country down there. I was still almost overwhelmed by all the people and traffic in Colia. He said the guys in the dorm were taking up a collection for me, as they could tell Scott had torn up everything I had. I told him, "Scott's dad gave me the money to replace my clothes and books. I'll have to get some more clothes, but I'll be okay. Use the money they collected to have a floor party. We can order some sandwiches and sodas and all get together." The guy said, "That's a great idea. We could even order pizza. We'll have to have a fight every once in a while so that we can take up a collection." I think the guys on the floor will take care of Scott the next time he gets out of hand. "You did a number on him, and I don't think you swung at him. No one will mess with you now that they know you won't take any." I said, "Are there washers and dryers in the dorm? I have to wash some of my new and used clothes. I also have a suit that needs to be dry cleaned." "Shoot. I forgot to get an iron and ironing board. I can do that tomorrow." The guy said, "The laundry building is between our building and the dorm next door. There's a laundry building between each of the dorms. They are open 24 hours, but you have to get tokens from the resident. They have machines in the laundry buildings that take 5s and 10s, but it will short you sometimes. The place is really busy on Saturdays unless there's a football game." I thanked him and said that I needed to get back to the dorm. We walked back together, making me feel like I was being accepted by the others on the floor. The first thing I did was go next door to the residence room and buy $20 worth of washer and dryer tokens. I asked about an iron and ironing board, and he said both were in the closet at the end of the hall. I could use them any time, but couldn't keep them in my room overnight. I loaded the laundry basket up with my sheet sets along with my jeans and shirts and went down the fire stairs on the outside of the building. The laundry building was right there, just back a little from the dorm buildings. It took 5 washers to get everything going. I put that much into dryers and fed the tokens. One dryer didn't want to work, so I opened it and looked at the catch to see if it had a switch on it. It was stuck in one position, so I jimmied it loose and shut the door again. The thing started right up. I took out my class list to see where the professors I missed yesterday and today were going to be while I was waiting for the clothes to finish. I needed to go by and apologize for missing the first day of school. I hopefully wouldn't have to discuss the problem. I compared that to the schedule for tomorrow and made a plan. I thought all my professors would be available in their offices from 8 on, so I could make my 10 o'clock class after seeing everyone if I could make it through them all. I checked the campus map and decided that I could do this if I hustled. I had to go by the bookstore to get a work schedule during lunch, but I could still grab food and stuff it. Supper was going to be a problem because I wouldn't be able to get to the cafeteria if I was working. I'd figure it out because I needed to eat well if I was going to give my best to school. It took until almost 11 to get my clothes washed and ironed. I still had more to wash, but I would be fine for right now. I tried the radio and picked up the campus radio station and had it turned low on soft jazz. I was hoping to wake at 6 to eat breakfast and begin making my way around to the professor's offices before 8. I needed an alarm clock. I woke up at 5 a.m. after 6 a.m. to have a good outlook on what the day should be. I showered, shaved my few whiskers, brushed my teeth, and made sure that my hair was standing up the way it should. Most of the kids had long hair, but that would be a pain to wash and brush all the time. I liked a flat top that my sis was the best at cutting. I loaded the books for yesterday's and today's classes into my backpack, grabbed my coat, and left my room to go to the cafeteria. There were a few guys in gym clothes, or what they were referring to as workout clothes. I didn't understand working out, but I was sure I'd learn all the jargon as time passed. I finished breakfast and was camped at the first professor's door by 10 to 8. A man walked up to the door and used a key to unlock it and go in. He said, "I'm Jonathan Morgan. Are you waiting to see me?" "Yes, sir," I said as I followed him in. He turned lights on and put his backpack down on his desk and took out what looked like a calendar. "Can I see your student ID card?" The man looked at it and checked his calendar before handing it back to me. He said as he used his keyboard to make a few keystrokes, "Your predicament precedes you, Mr. Beck. You have all the professor's sympathy for being the butt of Scott McKinley's prima donna status. You were a discussion topic at last night's freshman advisory meeting. You're going to make some of what we want to do more difficult by taking a part-time job, but it fits you. Mrs. Harrison, the bookstore manager, called us last night, and again this morning, to let us know that you would be going to work there." I was stunned my problems had been discussed on such a wide basis. Dr. Morgan began, "Here's what I'm going to do with and for you. This class is supposed to be a way to teach students to study and to make priorities. Your application shows that you had to wait for the right time to apply and what you expect from us. I want you to read the class guide, which is an overpriced, very small book about college life. I'll give you the exam sheets for you to fill out and return to me. You can use my class time to study for other classes. I also have you for a poly-I class that I really enjoy, and we'll try to make interesting to everyone, and you'll be there with me at 1 this afternoon. It should be an easy grade if you will read the course material and the book. Now, let's go see Grunderson. He's such an old grouch, but he likes industrious students." We walked down the hallway and up a double flight of stairs. Dr. Morgan knocked on the door while turning the doorknob at the same time. An older gentleman was sitting at his desk that had small stacks of paper neatly arranged. He looked up and grimaced. "It figures it would be you." Jonathan laughed and said, "I've brought someone you'll enjoy helping." The man at the desk looked me up and down and asked, "Is he your new boyfriend or someone you're trying to seduce?" "Can it for a minute, you old perf? This is Bernard Bernie Beck, the student who had the run-in with the city police night before last and damaged poor Scott's facial features. He's come to apologize for missing your first class that you used to scare the bejesus out of kids. He's courteous and polite, as you can see, and comes to us with great recommendations from his past teachers." The man, Dr. Grundson, gave me a lopsided smile and said, "I should blindly pass you now for giving that kid a broken nose. What do you want of me?" Jonathan said, "Do what I'm going to suggest for all his Monday classes, and let him work at his own pace and see if you might get him through this semester as well as the second semester. Scale back to just this one if he isn't up to it. Bernie wants to catch up a year and a half, so he is at least level with the others who graduated high school with him." The man adjusted his glasses so that he could look over the frames at me and said, "I can do that, but I can't spend an inordinate amount of time teaching what his high school teachers didn't." The man took a deep breath and said, "Do this for me, kid. Use the book and complete the first 2 chapters along with the problems they present. Bring that in by Friday and we'll see what else we can do." I had already paged through the first few chapters and the questions, and they were all problems that were given to us during our grade school math classes down in the country. They called a few things by different names, but math is cut and dried. You're missing part of the puzzle if the problem doesn't solve. The professor said, "Now get out of here so that I can gloat over having a student in my classes who whipped up on the horrible Scott McKinley." Jonathan Morgan led me back downstairs and out the front, where we walked to the entrance of the next building. He said, "You're about to meet one of the sweetest professors on campus, Dr. Frida Campbell, the senior professor and chair of the Department of English. She's strict and demands a lot from her students, but you'll learn a lot of interesting information from her. You'll have at least 4 semesters of classes in her department." Jonathan knocked on a door with one of those glass panels you can't see through that had the name Frida Campbell, Ph.D., painted on it. A voice said, "Come." "Oh, it's so nice to see you this morning, John. I'm guessing this is the young man we discussed last evening. Bernard Beck, correct? Yes, ma'am. Jonathan said, I briefly gave the group what I'd like to do with Bernie to see if he can handle the extraordinary heavy load he's registered for. What can you do with your course requirements to get him through at least the first semester classes? Dr. Campbell picked up what looked to be part of the application I had made to the school and said, Well, Mr. Beck, you're way ahead of the curve if you can write more like this in the future. No misspelling. Your sentence structure and grammar are all correct, as is your punctuation. A note on the bottom here says that you did this in the registrar's office instead of taking it home to do. This is impressive. The woman stood, pulled a stack of papers from her credenza, and handed them to me. Your high school obviously taught you well, so let's see how well. These are all the class assignments for this semester, and the second semester that is being taught to those who began the school year last day. Please come and speak with me if you don't understand what I'm asking of you. I'll introduce you to one of my graduate staff associate professors who can also assist you. I'm interested in seeing how you perform without supervision. Just thinking of 2 semesters of assignments had me sweating, but this would definitely help me achieve my goal of making up the time I lost. The stately woman asked, Can you type? Yes, ma'am. I've had experience on manual and electric typewriters and a computer keyboard most recently. I use the computers at our library in town. Good. Good. Get a laptop and printer if you can afford one. I think you can get one for a reasonable price at Walmart. You'll need some software, but the most important will be a word processor. Put that on your priority list to purchase using the income from your new job at the bookstore. Mrs. Harrison seems excited that you will be coming to work there. Good luck, Bernie, and bring me a steady stream of assignments, Jonathan. And I walked back to his office where he said to me, Your last class for Monday would be your Intro to Poly I, my other class, with you. Read the book cover to cover. Attend class when you can, and I will not register a cut if you're studying or working. I think you can expect that from all your professors. The freshman year is often all the professors seeing what you learned in the 12 years before you came to us. Go to the bookstore to get your work schedule. Come to see me next Monday or Tuesday early like this morning. I'll register as your academic advisor. I walked out with enough work to keep me busy night and day for a couple of months. The weather had been mild so far this winter, but the rest of January and February are always the killer months. Going into the dorm during the late morning is different, as it's very quiet. I arranged my books on the small study table and put my suit in my backpack to take to the cleaners. The bookstore was just outside the gate where student parking was, so I went there first. Mrs. Harrison was at a front register and smiled at me as I walked in. Good morning, Mr. Beck. I've heard your professors are going to work with you to try to get you caught up for the year. You might be pushing it to try and catch up a year and a half in one semester. Here's your work schedule, so show up at 4 this afternoon, and you'll work until 9. You have an admirer who has insisted that I try to schedule you during the same hours she has. I'm speaking of Julia, as you can guess. I think she's been impressed that you're courteous and soft-spoken. I have a question, Mrs. Harrison. I'm a growing boy and need a lot of food. When do your people who work that 4 to 9 shift eat dinner? Good question. The bookstore provides some hoagies that should satisfy your hunger. I always have more than enough, so you can eat 2 or 3 of them. I'll let 2 at a time go to the cafeteria if we're real slow. Thank you, ma'am. I was going to see if the cafeteria could make something up that I would bring. This is better because I won't take long to eat and be back working. With my schedule in hand, I told the manager, I need to run a couple of errands real quick before lunch and attend my Poly A lecture. Dr. Morgan said I didn't have to attend, but I want to experience one of his lectures. I'll see you before 4. That meeting made me smile as I headed to the dry cleaners next door. I asked the clerk if they did alterations, and she pointed to an Oriental woman sitting at a sewing machine. I need the pants on this suit shortened about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. The woman said, If you can step over to the curtain dressing room and put the pants with your shoes on, the seamstress will mark your pants for you. I put the pants on, and the Oriental lady came over to slide the pants up and down on my waist. She said, We take up some here. You new student, so we'll probably gain weight. You still grow, so you need to have material at bottom to let out later. I marked for you to look good. The lady did her thing, and I changed back into my jeans that I had obviously pressed the night before. The lady who had measured me passed her hand over the crease and said, "You good man to press pants to look good. You will have lots of ladies who like man to look neat." The clerk made a comment as I was putting my coat on. "I have a coat that was brought in last year and has never been picked up. I'll bet the coat would fit you perfectly. Do you want to try it on?" I smiled and said yes if it's in better shape than what I have. I need a new coat, but haven't found one that I like yet. The lady brought the coat out, and I tried the very nice leather coat with a heavy zip outlining on. This thing would have cost a fortune at the fancy department store it came from. The clerk said, "Fits perfectly. Pay for the cleaning and it's yours." How do you thank someone who doesn't know you but makes your life better? I profusely thanked her and told the clerk that I would do it chore for them. When I came to pick up the suit, she said, "You can do a favor for me right now. Use this pole and release those dresses stuck at the roller stop. Someone put the price tag too high and it caught on the stop." I lifted the dresses down where she could relocate the price tags and then put them back. She used her conveyor buttons to move the dresses forward and backward. She was so happy that she hugged me. My goodness, I received a hug from a woman and I didn't even know her name. That's pretty heavy stuff. I left the cleaners walking on air, proud of myself for having helped someone. The woman came running out the door with the leather coat, hollering that I had forgotten it. She knew that she had flustered me and kissed my cheek while showing me the ring finger on her left hand to tell me that she was taken. I drove to the mall that wasn't that far and parked near the Sears entrance. They usually have their shoe department just on the other side of outdoor equipment and tools. It was where it should be, and I went through the shoes and found a pair that looked nice, while not flashy. I also bought a pair of loafers that I would wear with jeans. I bought a can of black shoe polish and a brush set when I was paying for the 2 pair of shoes so that I would be ahead of the game shining the shoes. I had to fill up with gas and waited until I got to the Walmart store. Their gas prices are always a few cents less than other stations. I was able to park fairly close to the door because it was still early in the day. I locked the truck and went in to look for a laptop. I really searched through the laptops they had and finally decided on one that made me feel like it might last a while. They had a deal on the laptop, an inkjet printer with a scanner copier, fax, and Microsoft Home and Student Office for just under $1,000. This thing will hopefully last more than a year. I bought 2 Pumpia memory cards to go with it so that I could back up what was on the hard drive. They had another type of memory they called a memory stick, but they didn't have any of them. I bought a small pack of CDs that you could only write on once. There was a new style coming that you could rewrite on the CD, but the CD inventory hadn't caught up with the equipment. There were too many distractions in the store, so I pushed my cart to the front to pay and headed back to the dorm with my purchases. I mentally calculated that I was now down to a little over $2,500 of the $3,800 that Scott McKinley Sr. had given me. I resisted the urge to get distracted by the new items, so I organized everything on my desk and took the boxes out to the dumpster. My study table and computer desk looked ready. I hoped that I was. Lunch was good with some beef hash that had carrots and potatoes in it. I had that and some green beans along with an apple before going to my political science introduction lecture. The lecture hall was like a movie theater with the speaker lower than the audience. I was sitting low in the middle and Jonathan Morgan smiled and nodded at me as I sat with my notebook ready to take notes. The textbook was open to the area he should be covering, but he said that he used the textbook for a guide and enjoyed giving us the side notes of the history of political science. He said everything he would lecture on would be in the text, but he hoped that he could enthuse us more by giving us some insights rather than just dull facts. The hour rocketed by and you knew that the professor enjoyed the subject. My 2 o'clock class was a requirement. Student financial management was taught by a stiff, shriveled-up-looking woman who must be drowning in people who can't count or manage a checkbook. There's no way I should be forced to take a class like this. I waited for the class to clear and went to stand in line to speak to her. I've been handling my family's finances since I was 12, Miss Charing, when it was my turn to be in front of her. I'm not saying that your class has no value, but do you really have to teach 18, 19, and 20-year-olds how to balance a checkbook? All these people are in college, upper education. They need to know how to negotiate and how to look for ways to save money. The lady's left eyebrow rose into a distinct arch as she looked at her student roster. You might be bored with this class, Mr. Beck, but it's very important to most of the students. I have a packet of tests for you to complete for me. I've heard other professors are doing this for you as well. Please attend lectures if you have a question, and you can ask me then. Miss Charing handed me a dozen sheets of paper, smiled, and closed her briefcase in preparation for leaving. She said, "Come, I'm on my way to the bookstore." I spend a few hours there daily as a part-time job. You can get an early start on learning what to do. She mentioned Jonathan Morgan several times on the way to the bookstore. She finally admitted that she was excited that he had asked her out for dinner this evening. She sounded like a high school girl. I told her that I really enjoyed his class as well as his assistant getting my classes in line. Mrs. Harrison had Miss Charing take over the front and led me to the back. She handed me a smock, showed me a locker to put my backpack in, and took me to a bench where signs were made. She showed me how to make a name tag and said I would be doing a lot of them because students didn't stick to a job very long most of the time. I made the name tag, pinned it on the smock, and then was shown how to make the signs. You put spelled words and the price on the layout, put ink on the roller, imprinted the piece of cardboard, and hung the completed sign up on a clothesline to dry. She kept checking her watch and finally said, "Okay, let's get you punched in to start your day. You were early and able to donate some time to the bookstore, but you'll now be earning that whopping hourly wage. There are other benefits. I'm sure they will be appreciated." I was sent back to finish the long list of signs. This was obviously a planned activity as I finished just about the time a bunch of hoagies were ready to consume.